Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Gamescript. This edition, we're going to be looking at the London game between the New York Jets and the Minnesota Vikings. And it's a game where the Vikings have been on a roll, but will they be able to handle this Jets defense? We'll dig into it right after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Gamescript, taking a look at the London game between New York Jets and the Minnesota Vikings. It's a 40.5-point total. I see New York Jets as 2.5-point dogs in this one. I'm joined today by Spread Astaire, and Spread has already taken a look at this game on another show this morning. But Spread, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Man, I'm excited to see this one take place. And unfortunately, it looks like I'll be getting up a little early because I do think it's a compelling matchup. A lot of times these Sunday morning games are passable or wake up at halftime, but I think this one's going to be worthy of my full attention.
Yeah, for sure. Make sure to hit that like button. Get us to 30 likes so I can put out a shorter video a little bit later on. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. I'm only about 20 subscribes away from 1,000. That's a goal that I've had last couple weeks. So if you guys can get me to 1,000, that'd be great. And this is going to be a very interesting game held in London. Spread and I have had a lot of success breaking down these Euro games these last season with Jacksonville mainly. But this is going to be a good game too. I think with Minnesota being on a roll, a lot of people are going to be on Minnesota from an ownership perspective. But I do think that the Jets have a really good shot in this game. Spread, why don't you give us your viewpoint on this and your breakdown of this matchup?
Yeah, I think one of the first things we need to look at is how much the Denver Broncos were able to stifle the New York Jets last week, and that was behind Vance Joseph. And we know he is a very blitz happy coach. However, the most blitz happy coach at almost close to 50% of his play calls or blitzes is Brian Flores. So I think that they're going to try and look at that tape and look to take advantage of it. Of course, we know there was some rain there last week. But one thing that I did note was the Jets were unable to establish the run and kind of keep those defenders from really pinning their ears back. And that led to problems with Aaron Rodgers. And of course, high profile first round best ball pick, Garrett Wilson, who has really failed to pan out. And for the guys that like to track the X's and O's, not an impressive route tree there. From Garrett Wilson kind of reminds me of the way that JSN was complaining about Shane Waldron, and we see how more impressive he looks with more inventive play calling there. Wondering if Hackett's holding back some of this potential that the New York Jets have. And of course, they will have trade rumors swirling around them this whole weekend as Devontae Adams is being rumored to go there, but nothing official yet. So a lot going on there in New York. And then we'll jump into the other side of the ball. I do think this is a tough one, especially because the Minnesota Vikings have a more balanced attack. For example, if you write that Jets script, right, it's the Garrett Wilson breakout, Breece Hall, of course, Braylon Allen's been good. On the Vikings side, there's plenty of options here, especially with Sauce Gardner probably going to be shadowing Justin Jefferson, maybe an opportunity for Jordan Addison or even Jalen Naylor to get it done. I think the only sure thing on the Vikings side is Aaron Jones, and I would think that all my Vikings scripts are going to include Aaron Jones.
Interesting. Yeah, I do like the running backs in this one. These are two teams that funnel the passes to running backs, and each of these running backs has 18% target shares on their own teams. So I do think that is going to be favorable for passing to running backs in this game. And I agree with a lot of what you said, Spread. I think like with Rodgers too, though, he faced New England as well, and they were a blitz happy defense as well. So he's faced off against a couple of the top blitzing defenses in the league at this point. I think Minnesota kind of falls somewhere in between Denver and New England as far as like their talent. And I do think that Flores is a very talented defensive coordinator, but I think that the personnel on Minnesota might fall somewhere in between Denver and New England there. But we saw how Rodgers was able to pick apart that New England defense. I kind of have a feeling that he won't have a easier time with this Minnesota defense than he had last week with Denver. And one of the reasons why I feel that way is just the quickness that he's getting rid of the ball. And like the pressure rate that Minnesota's been applying, or the time to pressure, has been right in line with the time that it takes Aaron Rodgers to throw the ball. And if you look at these other quarterbacks that have faced this Minnesota defense, I'm looking at Jordan Love. He's the 5th slowest guy to get rid of the ball. CJ Stroud is the 17th slowest. Brock Purdy is the 2nd slowest to get rid of the ball, and Daniel Jones is the 13th slowest. So all these guys are slow to get rid of the ball. Aaron Rodgers is the fastest in the league right now at getting rid of the ball, and I think that is going to help him with trying to pick apart this defense a bit.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting. One thing, though, about those stats that I would kind of be wary of, Aaron Rodgers is probably also at this age the quickest to give up on the plays and just simply throw it away. Now that would be smart, but according to PFF, he doesn't have any turnover-worthy plays so far this year. So it's not like, for example, and this is a good example for the Vikings. I know that they were able to get the win last week, and Darnold's statistics look good. He did have a couple turnover-worthy ones where the balls were right in the hands of the Packers defenders, and they were not able to bring them down. And maybe we're singing a different story if they do. So we do know that Darnold will be more prone to turnovers. We know that Rodgers will be able to get the ball out quick. The other thing I wanted to note when it comes to Rodgers is we also saw him get a little banged up there towards the end of that game against Denver, which I think is going to be another impetus for him to get the ball out early. He's still recovering from that injury, and you don't want to be banged up going into week 5. So I think he's going to put his personal safety and the safety of the ball. So he's not going to allow himself to get hurt, and he's not going to give his defense a back-breaking turnover. If the Vikings are going to score, they're going to have to earn it. I don't think Rodgers will be giving them any short field position.
Yeah, the defense on Minnesota's side has definitely been helping Darnold out. Darnold is turning the ball over, I think, at the 2nd highest rate in the league, or at least the Minnesota offense is turning the ball over at the 2nd highest rate in the league. Their defense has been one of the most effective at turning the ball over as well. So it's kind of balanced out for them. I don't think that with Rodgers, like he's more protective, like Spread just said, of the ball. And that defense will take advantage of Darnold with these turnovers, and this Minnesota turnovers won't be as protected against a defense like the Jets.
All right, Simon. Well, it sounds like we're actually on opposite sides of this game here. It sounds like you're leaning the Jets if you were to bet it. I actually did place a bet on Minnesota, but that's the fun thing about this showdown, right? We're not just going to sit here and argue for an hour about who's going to win. We're going to look at the various scripts it would take for each one of our predictions to come true. So why don't we start with you? I did feel when I was diving into this game from the showdown perspective that a Jets script is easier to build. So let's start with that. And since you are Team New York Jets here, and you're thinking that Saleh and Hackett can get it done against my guys, how are you looking to start with this script? Are we going for an Aaron Rodgers captain, or do you believe that Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, or even Braylon Allen is a better way to start this lineup?
So I think the thing with Aaron Rodgers is I think he'll be able to pick this defense apart, but I think it might be like a more of a yardage play than a than a touchdown play. I think that guys like Breece Hall and Aaron Jones are probably going to be the best captain options in this one, just based on a preliminary look at it. I'll have my shorter video out closer to lock. So make sure to hit that like button. Get us to 30 so that I can put that out. But I would lean towards maybe a Breece Hall or an Aaron Jones in the captain. And if I'm going Jets, I'm probably leaning Breece Hall as my captain. I think one of the advantages that we have with Breece Hall is that, there's been a lot of talk about how he's less efficient than Braylon. And I do think that that is going to, maybe give people second thoughts about Breece Hall. He'll probably still be one of the highest owned captains on this slate. But anything that can take away like some of that ownership is a good thing if you want to use a guy like Breece Hall and the captain who we know can deliver a huge game. And I'm more interested in Breece from a passing game perspective than I am from a running game perspective. I see that the Vikings are giving up 18.1 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. But like I said, like I'm thinking that it's going to be a check down game for Rodgers. And I think that Breece Hall will be one of his guys that he's checking down to, along with Conklin and Lazard. So if I'm going Breece, I think my next move would be to put in Rodgers because I'm doing it from a passing perspective. I do like Jones in this one. I think Jones will be more effective than maybe some of these other weapons on Minnesota. Now, Spread, you said you think that Sauce is going to be shadowing Jefferson. I was hearing that they like to stay on their sides, like, and they don't really shadow too much on the Jets.
Oh, okay.
Like,
that's good knowledge. Yeah, because I was
Yeah.
just assuming they would do that. But if that's the case, that's going to give Jefferson some more opportunities.
Yeah, I think so too. Like that was what I was hearing on, like I was listening to some of the local analysis and they were talking about how like the Jets defense typically stays on their sides and they don't really like shadow too often. So I'm going to put let's see, I got 5,900 per guy. I will try to put Jefferson in there too, like just cuz we know he's going to get the volume and see where that kind of leaves us. Let's see. Conklin, unbelievable how Conklin still stays this cheap. The tight ends against Minnesota's defense. Minnesota's giving up 13 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. And I think, what we saw with Rodgers checking down in that New England game, like Conklin, we saw him getting a ton of work in that game. He got, how many targets did he get in that game? He ended up getting 6 targets, 5 receptions for 93 yards. But it was really like the first game where we saw him using Conklin effectively. You look at last week's game, another game where they're getting blitzed heavily. He went 8 targets to Conklin in that game against Denver. Didn't have the same type of success that he had against New England. But I do think with Minnesota being a weaker defense against tight ends, it makes a lot of sense to have Conklin in this lineup too. And leaves us with 2,900. Spread, do you see anyone in this 2,900 range that you like?
No. When I built mine, I actually had to take Jones out of this one.
Jones, yeah.
To grab a little more money here.
Let's see. So if we take out Jones, I think if I took out
Let me look
Jones,
at the bottom again though, because I do like the way this has started off.
You know who might be interesting is Corley.
That was the name I just thought to say scrolling through here. He's the only one I consider of the quote unquote dumpster divers.
Yeah, and he's only $200. He only has 1 target all season, but like if they're talking about shaking things up on the Jets, like Corley was a hyped up rookie, so I wouldn't be surprised if at some point we're going to start to see him getting more usage, but maybe not in such a high profile game like this one. But $200, like I think, like Spread said, like if you're going dumpster diving, like $200, you can't really go wrong for a guy with that profile.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to look.
So if we put Corley in, that would put
Jones back in.
Okay. Yeah,
you can pretty much go anywhere you want there.
Yeah, exactly. You could put Darnold or Jones or Wilson. Probably go with I
think in your jet script you should go with a passing option. I might go
Yeah.
Darnold there.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind going that way too. With me, I think in this matchup, I think that the Jets are going to do well against Darnold. I just think that the pressure that they're going to be able to put on Darnold, who's he faced so far this season? He's faced the Giants, the 49ers, Houston, and Green Bay. So Houston and 49ers would probably be the best defenses there. Wouldn't you say, Spread?
Yeah, and I don't think Green Bay's defense is bad. So I was actually impressed with
Yeah.
his ability to move the ball against them.
Yeah, so he's been doing pretty well. I would lean Jones here, I think. I just think that they're gonna be checking down. Both these sides are gonna be checking down a lot, and I think that, Jones, let's see, what was the stat I saw? Like, they both of these defenses, lend towards passing to the running backs. Both teams, both defenses are strong against the run, but allow points to the running back in the pass. Both of those guys having 18% target shares on top of that. I just think that the difficulty of these defensive matchups are just going to lend themselves towards these quarterbacks leaning on these running backs in the passing game. But Spread, if I clear this out, like now let's go in your direction and see.
No, let's do one more with your direction.
Okay.
Conklin captain.
Conklin captain. Okay.
I mean, you talked about it before, and now, I mean, the whole world's gonna be at your fingertips, Simon. It's gonna be like going on a shopping spree here. So I want to know. Let's say we do this.
Yeah.
We throw Conklin in that captain spot. All right. So now we've only spent 4,800. We have 45.2 left. How would you build from here? So you throw in some Jefferson in there. That's great. I'm assuming you want Brees and Jones.
Yeah, I think Brees and Jones leaves us 7,500 per guy.
I mean, you can throw Rodgers in there, and you're sitting at 6K.
Yeah, I think I'd lean Rodgers there. If we had 6K left over,
I think
like
you would go with Jalen Naylor or a kicker.
Naylor or a kicker, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How's Naylor been doing? 2 targets versus Green Bay, 4 versus.
You have to remember when Addison came back. Maybe we stay away from Naylor. Let's go for a kicker here.
Addison. How much what is Addison's price? He's at 7,200.
Priced out there in this build.
So yeah, like a kicker would work in this build because I think it's going to be, like a lower scoring game. I think it's going to be more, both these teams are going to have a little bit of difficulty moving the ball. I just think that Aaron Rodgers, with his experience against these types of defenses and, like his ability to get the ball out quick, his ability to read the field, he's going to have a lot easier time than some of these younger guys that have faced Minnesota so far. Like, because Daniel Jones, like he's just not a very good quarterback, but Brock Purdy, CJ Stroud, and Jordan Love, we're looking at what, like 2 guys are in their second year as starters, and then Purdy is in his 3rd year as a starter. So, like I don't think that Minnesota is going to be able to overwhelm Rodgers the way that maybe they've been able to with some of these younger quarterbacks.
All right. Well, let's see if let's build one if I'm right and the Vikings get the win. So where would you start here? Is it Jefferson all day?
For me, let's see. Let me look at the matchup here.
We do Jefferson or Jones to start with, I would think.
Yeah, I think I would lean Jones. I think I'm leaning Jones.
Let's do that. That saves us about 4K too. We can still get Jefferson in there. So we got Jefferson, Jones, and assume that where's Darnold at? Assume that Darnold has a good day. Now you only have 14K for your last 3. So it's funny in our other builds, I feel like I like the Jets defense more than I like the Vikings defense.
Yeah, I do.
I think
too.
Conklin is almost like we should put him in almost every single one.
I think so too.
Especially because of the way we built here. We're going to need some money.
They're cheap. 3,200. That's crazy. Yeah.
Maybe it's because we need money. You go with Braylon Allen, and then you're sitting at 6K, and you're kind of at that last position we were at last time, picking a kicker or a defense.
I think Braylon Allen makes a lot of sense too, because like if those the weaknesses of Brees end up like haunting him in this game. Braylon Allen's been a more efficient running back. He's out only 5,400.
Yeah.
Let me check real quick spread to see if I can get an idea of what ownership is looking like. I didn't see any projections the last time I looked. Yeah, and I'm not seeing like it's going to be tough. Like with an international game, like keep an eye on your resources to see like if you find any like ownership projections popping up and stuff like that, because that's going to be a big edge, and it's not necessarily going to be a priority on a lot of these sites to cover here. Okay, Roto Grinders, I'm seeing some ownership here. All right, so if we're looking at Braylon Allen, okay, Brees Hall, I'm looking at 54% ownership in the flex. If I'm looking at Braylon Allen, he's looking at about 17%, according to Roto Grinders.
That's a good way to get different with someone who's got almost just as much upside, because we've seen Allen actually outscore Hall. I know he did last week against the Broncos, so it'll be interesting to see where that goes. I know that they do have a commitment to Hall, and that was the player that we were really targeting here. But Allen's looked great so far this season.
Yeah, Allen's looked great, and he's been more efficient too. There's been a lot of talk about Brees looking a little bit. He's not getting any yards before contact and stuff like that. He's struggling, and then meanwhile, Braylon Allen is looking like a different. Like he's playing against a different defense. He's coming in and he's just crushing it, and we've seen his last couple games. Like I felt like in that New England game, like he only got 9.8 DraftKings points in that game, but it felt like he was a much bigger part of that game, didn't it, Spread?
Yeah, I'm surprised to see the fantasy points being lower. Obviously, his biggest game was against Tennessee, but as these last couple of games have slowed down a little bit, he's not really had the same opportunities. So interesting. Like I don't want to say change of pace, because I think both players really have a lot of juice, but an interesting second option there for the New York Jets.
Yeah, and he's a great pivot off of Brees, who's going to be the highest owned guy on the slate. It could be something that maybe like people haven't caught on to the inefficiencies. I thought, to me, it sounded like everybody's talking about it, but maybe it's just like on the couple things that I've listened to. Maybe it's not as widespread being talked about as I would have thought. Like
I think it's hard to get away from Brees with all the offseason hype we've had about him. We saw him be so productive to end last season, and when the Jets looked their best, he was at his best. So it makes sense that they're going to try to continue to get him involved first and foremost, and really it's going to have to take a tough situation for him to not want to get involved here.
Let me see if I can get an idea of Conklin. Conklin is looking at 41% ownership, so he's no secret on this slate.
No, not at all. Especially at 3,200, because we do want guys like Jefferson in there. We do want Jones. I like two quarterback builds as well. In fact, do you want to try a 2 quarterback build right now?
Yeah, let's do a 2 quarterback build.
2 quarterback build, because I do think that hey, I know things have been going under, but we've seen scoring start to tick up a little bit. We know a lot of these teams did not do any work in the camp and in preseason. Now these offenses are starting to click, and maybe this will be another opportunity over there. So, however you want to do this.
I think if we go 2 QB, I think we might want to switch from Jefferson to Addison.
Okay.
That'll give us a little bit more to work with. Because if we put Rodgers in, we're going to want to put a good receiver with him. And, like I say, good receiver, and I'm sitting here looking at Lazard and Williams. But Lazard,
I've been putting more Lazard than anybody in here. It feels like Rodgers really is a creature of habit, and his chemistry with Lazard has kind of ruled the day. And it's much to the frustration of people who are drafting Garrett Wilson with the idea that Rodgers was going to be able to take him to the next level. But unfortunately, so far, Garrett Wilson through 4 games averaged just as many points with Zach Wilson as this quarterback as he has with Rodgers. So that pairing is yet to become fruitful. I'm fine staying away from it until it does pay off. Now, I'm not taking Wilson out of my player pool, but in this case, where we've kind of gone expensive by putting both quarterbacks in, we're going to have to find ways to save some money. So Lazard over Wilson in this build is something I'm looking for.
And slot receivers have led the scoring against Minnesota in 3 out of 4 games. So that's a good point with Lazard there. You got to kind of put like the Lazard of it to the side. Like Minnesota's allowing 18.4 DraftKings points a game to the slot position. They're allowing 25.5 to the wideouts. So I don't think you go wrong with Lazard. Like if you have to go down at a price here. And plus, like Spread said, there's that familiarity. We saw him get 8 targets when he was getting blitzed by Denver. He got 3 targets when he was getting blitzed by New England, which surprised me because in the first drive of the game, he had a touchdown and then he disappeared for the rest of the game.
It didn't feel like by 14-3 though that game was over and they were already running out the clock. I mean,
yeah,
I know as someone who took the Patriots plus the points in that game, I when they fell down 14-3, I'm just like, well, it's over. We lost our bet, right? Now it's just time to see whether or not this game goes over or under. But I think that's so much different. With Minnesota, you're going to want to keep your foot on the gas because they can be a lot more explosive than the Patriots. So that's why I kind of throw those results out. Tennessee would be one that worries me because that's also an aggressive defense and only got 2 targets there. But against San Francisco defense, he found 6 targets as well. So at his price tag, I think Lazard's got a great chance to pay off.
Yeah, I think you're right on that Spread. I think Lazard is probably one of the better like mid price guys. Like you got Williams there too. You could do a rotation with these 2 guys if you think that Williams is going to start to show up. And then when you go down a little bit, you got guys like Allen and Naylor and Zerline. But what Spread said with Naylor, like now that Addison is back, Addison we saw he got 4 targets last week. He already had his first touchdown last week, 22 DraftKings points. So, Jordan Addison, I kind of like him in this game. I don't know if I like him more than Jefferson because like if Sauce was shadowing Jefferson, I'd like Addison more, but I have a feeling that they're going to try to get Jefferson on the side opposite of Sauce. Like if you're the offensive coordinator, I mean, you would think so, right? Spread, like you think Hackett plans it out that way, or how?
Well,
do you
that wouldn't be Hackett. I don't think Hackett would because I'm not a big fan of Hackett. But
right.
Kevin O'Connell, the offensive coordinator / head coach for the Minnesota Vikings, will attempt to do that. And that's another reason I do like the Vikings in this game. I think the coaching advantage is massive.
Yep. Oh yeah, I got my my OCs mixed up there. Yeah. No, you're right, Spread. Yep. So yeah, I think overall this game is going to be a good game for Showdown. Like there's a lot of good weapons in it. There's a lot of theory, game theory that you can play with a game like this. I do think that the hype is all on Minnesota right now, and the Jets have looked good in spots like Rodgers has flashed some of his upside already this season. We saw it when he just picked apart that New England defense. Like up until that point, like New England was, like not necessarily like one of the strongest defenses in the league, but I don't think that they were viewed as weakly as Rodgers was able to pick them apart at that point. So, don't be surprised to see a little bit of vintage Rodgers when he gets an opportunity to face off against the defense that is beatable in the passing game.
Yeah, and that's another thing there that we're going to be looking at. So, fortunately for you, I think the Jets builds are a little easier. I think we know who's going to go with it there. It's just really whether or not Garrett Wilson pays off. If the Jets win, that's going to be the key to your Jet scripts. On the Vikings side, I think there's a lot of different options. I think a Jones captain could be good. I think a Jefferson captain could be good. So, and even a Darnold one, although of the three big names, I think Darnold's my least favorite captain. Most of my Viking builds will be based around just either the Jones or the Jefferson start. The Jefferson start seems almost too easy until you plug him in there and you see how little money you have remaining. So might be one of those cases where having Jefferson in the flex is better because you're able to surround him with better players.
Yeah, and if we're looking at ownership here for the captain, I see Jones at 20%. I see Jefferson at 13%, which is a little surprising to me. I
It
would
has
wait
to be
closer.
a price tag based deal because once you
Yeah.
start building out with Jefferson and the captain, you see how limited you become.
Yeah, just very difficult. I mean, if you think it's going to be a low-scoring game, if you're watching this and you think it's going to be a low-scoring game, that's where it makes a lot of sense to have Jefferson as the captain because at that point he is getting a lot of the PPR work, and like maybe he's racking up yardage and receptions, and that's going to help out his score a lot and help to drive him towards one of those captain scores. Just on sheer volume alone. And then you'll have some of these scrubbier guys. Let's try to build one with Jefferson real quick, spread.
All right, let's do it.
Just for that.
The final thing I wanted to say about Jefferson is I also think that he's going to be key in your jet script. So make sure you leave some money from him if you are correct. And, Rodgers is looking as good as you think, and they get out to a lead. Could be a heavy dosage of Jefferson going into prevent if they're down by 2 scores or more. So you start with 17-4. So you already see how hamstring you are with only 32K left. Do you need to have Darnold in there if you're playing Jefferson, or do you think you're okay not doing that? Okay.
I'm okay not having Darnold in because
it's really Darnold or Jones there. And so let's put Jones here. Conklin's are kind of our free square. So if he busts out, none of our lineups are going to cash Simon, but I'm fine taking that gamble. I think we can come back with a little Rodgers here. And now you're at 11-2 for your last 2 spots. So
I
think that gives you some options here. Like I said, even though I like the Vikings to win, I still like the Jets defense from a daily fantasy perspective even more. I think that if the Vikings do win, maybe Rodgers is giving up on these plays really early, but I don't know if he's necessarily going to allow the turnovers. And fumbling hasn't really been an issue for the Jets either. So I think they have more of a chance there. And then if you throw them in there, you'll see where you land. Either Addison, Lazard, or Mike Williams, who I haven't talked about yet, but of course could be effective on this slate because he only has a 6,200 price tag, and we know that he does. He's going to be going for those big strike plays. Could be a case where with only 3 receptions, he's still in the winning lineup.
Yeah, and it's tough too because if you wanted to put in Addison, I think you would naturally say, okay, I'm going to take out Rodgers and put in Darnold. But look at Darnold's price; you're not able to get there in that situation.
Yeah,
because if I had Addison and Jefferson in, like I'm leaning Darnold. If I wanted to get Darnold, that I'm looking at like these like scrub zone for my final spot. So
yeah.
A little bit tough to get that in there, but if you swap out, like Spread was saying, you swap out Darnold there for Rodgers, then you can get Addison in there, and then you have your options like the Jets D, like he just discussed, and guys like that. But no, I think it's going to be. There's a lot of different directions you can go in this one. Overseas, they're going to be jet lagged. Both teams are flying out on Thursday or flew out on Thursday. So we don't really have an edge there like we normally do to exploit. So, like I think both teams are going to be, like at the same level from a tired perspective. And other than that, like there's not really like an edge to exploit there. I don't think that either team has played too much international ball recently. I do think that Minnesota played 1 game in like 2021. And I think it's been a little bit longer for the Jets. So Minnesota does have a little bit of recency, but like it's still like a situation where I think both teams are going to be dealing with the same struggles from international travel on this one.
Yeah, and you know what? I would really make Vikings a big bet if this were really played at Minnesota. And I did not, when I first looked at the lines, because I usually look at Sunday night, watching the Sunday night game, I thought, okay, see what they posted for next week, right? And just because they have to make someone the de facto home team, I said, he's only laying 2.5 at home, because we know that Minnesota's got that great home field advantage, right? So I actually give them 2 to 2.5. And I said, these teams aren't equal. And I think that you would agree with me, even though you do like the Jets here, that if the Vikings had the home field advantage, that number would be wrong. And it should have been close to 4.5 here. I can understand why people do like the Vikings a little bit more. And I do think they have a little bit more diversity in their offensive attack. So if the Jets are going to win, it's going to come down to, I think, that the points that you pinpointed in your Jet script, and that would simply be, and there's no more important position in sports than the quarterback position. And if Rodgers is at his best, they'll have a huge advantage there. So I can see why this is. And I think this is going to be a fun game. But the fact that it's international kind of makes me throw everything out the window as far as wanting to go extra on this game. And I think that that's a good for bettors. For these game scripts, what we're doing right now, hey, it's fine, because we're just identifying multiple different scripts. If you're just betting one side, one total, one script, like you would just simply betting against the house, I would say go lightly on these international games, because you never know what could happen. I was listening to Belichick before we jumped on, Simon, and he talked about the different ways to approach it. And he said he felt the best way. He wanted to fly in on Friday, have them all get off the plane, go to a meeting, and then just sleep until the game started. So the body clock thing is also something, and we know that certain people adjust to it well, certain people don't. I know that I personally would definitely struggle with that. The time zone change, where other people who are probably used to operating on less sleep are going to be just fine, and that's also tough for us to predict.
Yeah, for sure. Make sure to hit that like button, get us to 30 likes to put out that shorter video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Spread, where can they find your betting breakdown? You did a betting breakdown of this show a little while ago.
That's right. Just follow me at Spread a Stare on X, and we had a good breakdown of the whole weekend of football. I do not handicap college football, but I do a great job hosting the segment where they give out the winners for tonight's and Saturday night's game. And then, of course, you can find all my NFL content, and Simon, pretty close to catching some NBA content on my page as well, as preseason began today. So there'll be plenty of fun stuff if you're into daily fantasy, if you're into betting sports, or if you're just into talking crap about sports in general. You can find me on Twitter at Spread a Stare.
Awesome, Spread. Thanks for jumping on. Thanks, guys, for watching. And get me to 1,000 subscribers. And once I hit that 30 like mark, I'll put up a shorter video. Thanks for watching, guys.